Hello internet! Welcome to my detailed Jing Yuan guide, where I'll be covering absolutely everything from his builds, lightcones, rotation, and team comps. I'll also be answering the question of whether a speed boot or an attack boot is better on Jing Yuan later down the video. Disclaimer, these are all based on my research and what I understood from the game, so if I misunderstood anything or if I missed anything, please do let me know in the comments down below. Now that we got that out of the way, let's start. We'll quickly go through what he does. He has a basic attack that is just a basic single target attack. He has a very unique talent and is pretty much his bread and butter. Jing Yuan's talent allows him to summon the Lightning Lord, which is essentially a 5th character in your 4-man team. This Lightning Lord has 60 base speed and 3 base hit counts. When he takes action, he'll do a certain number of bounce attacks. The number is decided by its hit counts when it takes the turn. Every hit will do a percentage of Jing Yuan's attack, and the enemies adjacent to it will receive 25% of the damage dealt. Say if he has 5 hit count, he'll hit a random target 5 times, with each time also dealing 25% of the damage to the enemy directly beside the target. All the attacks from the Lightning Lord are considered as follow-up attacks. The Lightning Lord can have a maximum of 10 hit count, and every time you increase the hit count, the Lightning Lord gains 10 speed. In order to increase it, you can use Jing Yuan's skill, which gives Lightning Lord 2 more hit counts. Jing Yuan's ult, however, gives Lightning Lord 3 hit counts. Jing Yuan's skill and ult are both actually just area attacks, with the ult having higher multipliers than the skill, and that's pretty much it. Both of these skills are AoE, so that means it can hit every enemy on the field and do the same amount of damage across them all. He has a technique that increases the Lightning Lord's hit count by 3 at the start of the battle. So pretty much Jing Yuan's whole gimmick is to essentially increase Lightning Lord's hit count every turn, ideally to 10 stacks or close to it, with his skill and ult. With 10 stacks, Lightning Lord will do some insane damage for the fact that he hits the enemies that many times. A good Jing Yuan rotation would look like this. Have Ting Yun and Jing Yuan both use their techniques. Ting Yun should be faster than Jing Yuan and use her skill and ultimate on him. Jing Yuan should immediately use his ultimate and skill. Total up all the attack counts you gain from that, the Lightning Lord should have 10 at this point. It'll take a turn and nuke away. Next turn onwards, Ting Yun should buff Jing Yuan every other turn in order to obtain more energy and keep the buffs running on Jing Yuan. Since benediction lasts for 3 turns, buffing him every other turn should keep his benediction up and running. Jing Yuan should always be able to use his skill to get the hit count up. The rest of your team should ideally only use basic attacks. This way, a Jing Yuan with decent speed should be able to keep the Lightning Lord's hit count at an average of 8 every turn, which isn't 10 counts every turn, yes, but it's pretty much impossible to manage him that perfectly where you get 10 stacks every turn without some sort of a demerit to it, like overcapping the hit counts often, or being forced to use Bronya where her buff from the skill disappears right after Jing Yuan takes the turn he was given. More on that later though. Now that you understand what he does, I'll show you some of his best builds. Firstly, we'll talk about the Relic sets. The best set for Jing Yuan is undoubtedly the 4-piece Battle Sizzling Thunder set. Second best in slot is the 2-piece Musketeer of Wild Wheat paired with 2-piece Battle Sizzling Thunder. The third is the 4-piece Musketeer set. Let's take a look at the best in slot. The 4-piece Thunder set gives Jing Yuan 10% lightning damage and 20% attack increase for 1 turn after every skill usage. These are very good for Jing Yuan because he does lightning damage of course, and more importantly, the 20% attack increase allows Lightning Lord to also do more damage. This is simply because Lightning Lord's damage is based on Jing Yuan's attack, so Jing Yuan with higher attack buff is always a good thing for the Lightning Lord. And since he will pretty much only ever use his skill and ult, this set bonus will pretty much have a 100% uptime for Jing Yuan. Do note that Jing Yuan needs to have the attack buffs on him during the Lightning Lord's attack in order for it to do more damage. The alternative is the 2-piece Thunder set for the lightning damage bonus and the 2-piece Musketeer for the 12% attack bonus. This pretty much means instead of the 20% attack bonus with a 4-piece Thunder set, you only get 12% instead. I've tested both builds and the difference isn't way too ridiculous in Forgotten Hall, at least with what I own on my account. On the screen right now, you see a 4-piece Thunder set Jing Yuan beating one of the elites in Memory of Chaos Stage 3. Focusing strictly just on the set bonuses, I'm able to capitalize on the constant attack buffs and the memory turbulence effect and defeat this elite just as I hit cycle 38. 2-piece Thunder and 2-piece Musketeer Jing Yuan on the other hand does less damage each turn but is able to take turns more frequently. I was able to clear the same elite at the middle of cycle 38, which is only slightly slower. Of course, there are memory turbulence, relics and stat distribution, and Planetary Ornament set being the variables, but the main point is whichever set you choose to go for, the difference will not be too significant, so you should definitely just use what you own. If you're using the 4-piece Musketeer set, you'll lose out on even more damage, but you gain 6% speed. This amounts to about 6 speed for Jing Yuan, which isn't bad, but the 4-piece bonus also gets you basic attack damage, which is pointless on Jing Yuan, so it'd be a little bit of a waste. Here's Jing Yuan with 4-piece Musketeer set clearing that same elite. This time, however, I'm 1 turn too late and unfortunately just barely reached cycle 37. Again, there are uncontrollable variables by memory turbulence, my stats being not the same, and honestly even just critical hits. Speaking of my stats though, I try to keep them all as similar to each other as I possibly could. Sometimes I can't because I don't have the boot I need, but you know what, I tried. Anyways, the main point I can draw from this is that 4-piece Thunder, 4-piece Musketeer, or a mix of both can all be used, with the 4-piece thunder being the best option. But having the correct main stats on them are far more important. For example, I think if I had a speed thunder set boot, I might be able to clear the Sable lead even faster. Next, let's talk about the planetary ornaments. The best in slot is definitely the inner Salsoda set. It gives you 8% crit rate, which is what any DPS needs, and if you go over 50, you get 15% damage increase for ult and your follow-up attacks. Just so happens Lightning Lord's attacks are considered follow-up attacks, and just so happens the bulk of Jing Yuan's damage comes from Lightning Lord himself. And because of that, amplifying the Lightning Lord's damage has very high value for someone like Jing Yuan, making Inert Salsoda the best ornament set for him. I don't have a Salsoda set I can use on him at the moment though, so unfortunately I can't show it to you guys. It's so hard to get good relics, man. Anyway, if you don't have Salsoda, you can always go for the good old Space Sealing Station set. It gives you 12% attack, but note that the effect only doubles if you have 120 speed or more, which also means there's a high chance that you need to use a speed boot because Jing Yuan isn't really a character with high base speed. Or you can use Asta, but you basically only get to activate this ceiling set whenever she has her ultimate up. Or you gotta run 4-piece Musketeer, or just get 5 to 6 speed on all of your relic substats, and I assure you that is not easy. Now that we're done with the sets, let's take a look at the stats you're looking for. Generally, you need crit rate, attack, crit damage, and speed. That's pretty much the package for most of the damage dealers out there. Here are the main stats you should go for: crit rate or crit damage on your body, speed or attack percent on your feet, which more on this later, lightning damage or attack percent on your sphere, and attack percent on your link row. In terms of substats, look for pretty much the same stuff. The alternative substat you can have is break effect, since he is a pretty good toughness breaker. A very interesting argument about Jing Yuan is about his boots. It's up on the air whether to say having speed is better or having attack percent on your boots are better, so decided to try and find out. I have two builds on the screen here. They're both Jing Yuan with 2-piece Musketeer and 2-piece Thunder, with the difference being that the left side has an attack boot that's plus 12 because I ran out of resources, and right side has a speed boot that's plus 15. On the screen right now, you see the attack boot Jing Yuan fighting Memory of Chaos stage 1's elite. I used all my techniques, fed Jing Yuan with all the buffs, and he was able to get Lightning Lord to 9 stacks here. Jing Yuan took his turn and got the final skill in for a maximum of 10 hit count nuke. The damage is a pretty good 30k here. Cycle 2 onwards is where things get a little bit interesting. Memory Turbulence gave Jing Yuan the turn, but as he does his skill, Jing Yuan is not able to overtake the Lightning Lord on the next cycle here. But thankfully the boss was kind enough to hit Jing Yuan twice, which gave him just enough energy for the ult. I got a total of 8 stacks here, but if I was just faster and had a speed boot on, I could have gotten 10. And on top of that, if the boss didn't even hit me, I could have just ended up with 5 stacks because I wouldn't have my ult up with Jing Yuan there. The damage from the hit counts are there, it's pretty good. Since Jing Yuan was slower, he took the turn after the Lightning Lord, which would be bad because he might end up being slower than the Lightning Lord 5 stacks again next cycle. But thanks to the turbulence, I just got the turn for free anyway. I managed to defeat the lead with Ting Yun's ult into Jing Yuan's ult with 38 cycles left. Next, we have the same sets, but Jing Yuan now has a speed boot instead with 128 speed here. I did all the same thing, and the first comparison is the 10 hit count damage. Attack boot definitely does more considering I did do more even with a plus 12 boot as compared to this plus 15 speed boot. I know attack boot doesn't seem like a lot more damage, but it's plus 12, so I could have gotten a lot more than that. And again, missing crits or an abundance of crits would affect the numbers in a lot of ways where I can't control. The next big comparison, however, is when the turbulence pushed Jing Yuan, and now he has to do his skill and hopefully overtake the Lightning Lord with 5 hit counts. With the attack boot version, I couldn't, but thankfully with the 128 speed version, he is able to overtake the Lightning Lord, which also means I got the turn with him and I can do his skill into his ultimate to get a total of 10 max hit counts. Jing Yuan with attack boot earlier only managed to get 8 stacks in, and pretty much the only reason why he even got 8 stacks in is because the boss hit him to give him enough energy. And the difference between a 10 full stack and an 8 stack is actually pretty big here. After that, I got a turbulence push and was able to end it with just Jing Yuan's skill. I ended the fight with 38 cycles, but was slightly faster than earlier. With all of that said, which one is really better, speed or attack? From what I've tested, I will say having speed on your boot will be better in the long run. Let me explain. The speed boot allowed me to have consistently high hit counts, and just from comparing the damage, having 2 extra hit counts really makes a big difference. Without the memory turbulence, having speed on Jing Yuan will still allow him to be consistently faster than the Lightning Lord, especially when it has 5 stacks of hit count right after Jing Yuan's skill. But if you lack speed, you might sometimes find that the Lightning Lord is ahead of Jing Yuan even with 5 stacks of hit count. And the hit counts contribute to a very big amount of damage, as you can see here. Hence, I would suggest going for the speed boot because you get to consistently maintain high hit counts for a good barrage of damage every cycle. If an attack boot's all you got, that's also fine though. As you see from my testings, they don't really make too big a difference in terms of performance, but perhaps it's also only due to the memory turbulence. Ignoring the turbulence though, you can definitely still use Bronya to solve the issue of a slow Jing Yuan, but she's a 5-star, so yeah, probably not that common. I would also suggest not forcing Bronya with Jing Yuan because she's much better with characters that does high damage on their own turn, like Sealer or Dan Heng. Jing Yuan does high damage on the Lightning Lord's turn, which means Bronya's 1 turn damage buff from your skill will never apply tied to the Lightning Lord. More in team comps later though. Again, I have to stress this enough, you should use whatever you have. It's not like he can't be used just because you don't have a speed boot on. My default build for now is actually a 4-piece thunder set with attack boot since it works perfectly fine right now with the turbulence anyway. A decent Jing Yuan will look like this. High attack, around the 130 speed mod for a speed Jing Yuan build, 1 to 2 crit rate to crit damage ratio, the higher the better. If you're looking to build an attack boot Jing Yuan, he'll basically have 25 less speed but about 500 more attack, which again for this memory turbulence as of now works fine. It might not work as good if the turbulence goes away though. Now that you understand his builds and whatnot, let's take a look at his light codes. I'll be assuming every light cone is at super in position 1. Let's start by going through all the 3 stars. The top choice is definitely Sagacity, which gives you 24% attack buff for 2 turns after an ult, which is perfect since you need Jing Yuan to have attack buff on him during the turn where your Lightning Lord attacks. If you don't, that simply means your Lightning Lord does less damage since it's based on Jing Yuan's attack. Sagacity allows you to have that 2-turn attack buff, which is also after an ult, so it's highly likely Lightning Lord will have high stacks of hit count and will be able to utilize that attack buff to its fullest. Next up, Data Bank is the second choice here. It's more ult damage, but that's about it though. Finally, we have Passkey, which gets you energy, which is kind of bad since you don't gain damage in any form, but hey, they are 3 stars, so use what you got. 4 stars wise, the best in slot is Today is Another Peaceful Day. This light cone increases your damage based on your max energy. Jing Yuan having one of the highest max energy in 130 means he gains a lot more damage from this light cone. Second best in my opinion is the Seriousness of Breakfast. This increases the wearer's damage by 12%, which is always nice on the DPS. For every defeated enemy, the attack increases by another 4% and it stacks up to 3 times. As I mentioned, Lightning Lord wants Jing Yuan to have high attack, which this light cone is able to provide. But keep in mind only if there are enemies that you can defeat though. Third in slot would be the Birth of the South. This light cone can get you 24% follow-up attack bonus, and since Lightning Lord does follow-up attacks, this will help him out. If you can get below 50% health, the effect doubles, making it basically half a Before Dawn, which is Jing Yuan's exclusive light cone. But it'll be rare that you ever want to rely on the condition of trying to be near death though. Next up, we have the Genius's Repose. It gives you 16% attack that Lightning Lord can utilize, and if you defeat an enemy, you gain 24% crit damage for a fat 3 turns. But the caveat here is that it only happens if you defeat an enemy, so if you're up against a tough boss, this effect is essentially not existent. Although you still get that 16% attack. Finally, we have Make the World Clamor. It gives you 20 energy right off the bat and 32% all damage bonus. The problem is that Jing Yuan's damage really mainly comes from the Lightning Lord, and this light cone unfortunately doesn't help out in that regard too much, so I wouldn't really use this at all when the Seriousness of Breakfast is purchasable from Forgotten Hall. Next, let's talk about the 5 stars. The best in slot is undoubtedly his own light cone. I'm pretty sure you've heard a lot about how crazy this light cone is, but to put it in perspective, you can pretty much do at least 1.5 times your damage now just by switching anything else to this light cone here. It's basically the 48% follow-up attack increase from Birth of the Self, but you don't even need to be below 50% health. You do have to use your skill for it to happen on the next follow-up attack though, which is what you should be doing anyway, so not much of an issue there. On top of that, you gain 36% crit damage for free and 18% skill and ult damage for free. That is just an overwhelming amount of value that makes it incomparable to any other light codes. The downside, well, good luck getting it. The only other 5-star erudition light code is Knight of the Milky Way, which gets you more attack the more enemies are on the field. But it would suck if you're against only like a singular boss. You also get a 1-turn damage increase if you inflict Weakness Break, which is always good for the Lightning Lord as long as you don't accidentally take another turn and lose this 1-turn buff. I wouldn't use this on Jing Yuan unless it's against a lot of mobs or boss stages where they summon a lot of little guys. And that's all for the light cone department. Finally, I like to go through a few team compositions that you can try out. I'll start with the free-to-play options. We have the Fire Trailblazer, Natasha and March, Asta, and Jing Yuan on the Breakfast light cone. With this team, you can get away with the slower Jing Yuan, especially during the current Bermuda turbulence. Asta's talent applies pretty much a permanent attack buff that can stack up to 5 times. I won't go too deep into Asta's kit, that'll be in another video. But anyways, you should start the battle with using her skill on the first turn to get the maximum amount of charging stacks. Jing Yuan should focus on spamming his skills and ult whenever available, as long as you do not have 10 hit count. There will be times where Jing Yuan gets pushed by the turbulence and end up in the bottom of the turn order after he takes that turn. In the case where he isn't fast enough to get ahead of the Lightning Lord with 5 stacks of hit count, Asta will be able to use her ultimate and advance Jing Yuan ahead of the Lightning Lord and into the current cycle again. That means he gets to do his skill one more time to get to 7 hit counts. And since he got into the current cycle, that means the turbulence pushes him at the start of the next one, instantly granting him the turn before the Lightning Lord. Here's where you can choose to do a skill for a 9-stack nuke or go crazy and top it off with the ult for a 10-stack nuke, though it's a bit wasteful. Since Asta's charging buff never wears off to duration wise, as long as she can keep getting high amounts of charging buff every turn through her talent, Jing Yuan can take infinite turns and still have the charging buff intact, which will mean that Lightning Lord can deal massive damage constantly. If there was no turbulence, things would be a little different. You do not want to just rely on Asta's ultimate all the time, so ideally you'd want Jing Yuan to be at around the 130 speed mark. That's assuming there's no turbulence. Asta can still work with that Jing Yuan no problem though, because she's still a provider of a very big attack buff that doesn't really just wear off duration wise, as long as she can keep refreshing the charging count. Next up, we have the non-free-to-play options. Caparder Fire Trailblazer, Bailu or Natasha, Ting Yun or Bronya, and Jing Yuan. I won't mention much about everyone else because they're pretty standard anyway, but Ting Yun and Bronya does raise a bit of an interest here. Both of them are pretty good, but in the case of Bronya, it's a little bit unique. She does increase Jing Yuan's damage on her skill, but it's only for one turn, and just so happens Bronya will make Jing Yuan take that one turn instantly. This basically means the buff duration of that skill will expire at the end of Jing Yuan's turn. As a result, it will never stay until the Lightning Lord attacks, which is why the Lightning Lord will never benefit from Bronya's skill. That said, Bronya's ult can still help Jing Yuan and Lightning Lord dish out incredible damage because it lasts for 2 turns though. Bronya can also allow you to have Jing Yuan be on the attack boot, since you'll basically be gaining a lot of turns for her with Bronya. I'm able to get to 10 stacks pretty often, as you see right now, while fighting Member of Chaos stage 3 here, because Bronya's just cracked out. But for the fact that her skill does not quite benefit the Lightning Lord, Ting Yun is arguably the more consistent choice here. It's not to throw shade on Bronya, she's still pretty darn great. But anyways, taking a look at Ting Yun's skill, it is a 3-turn attack buff for Jing Yuan. That means you can be sure that the Lightning Lord will benefit from it easily. Ting Yun also doesn't force Jing Yuan to take the turn, so yeah, he'll keep his buffs intact. Ting Yun's ult is also a 2-turn damage increase on top of getting Jing Yuan more energy, which ultimately means Jing Yuan gets to do his ult more and gain more hit count that way. They're both really good choices, but I believe Ting Yun is a lot more consistent than Bronya, at least if paired with Jing Yuan. With this team, you're looking to keep Benediction on Jing Yuan at all times so the Lightning Lord can benefit from it. Ult with Ting Yun on Jing Yuan and easily get your Lightning Lord to 10 hit count that way. With all the buffs intact, Lightning Lord should be able to dish out incredible damage. Repeat that process and you'll be good. We also have a hyper nuke comp that I thought of here. Ting Yun, Pella, Bronya, and Jing Yuan. Make sure all your buffers and debuffers are on Fleet of the Ageless set. Make sure Pella is on Resolution Shines like Pearls of Sweat Lyco. Make sure Ting Yun is on the Planetary Rendezvous Lyco. Make sure Bronya is faster than Jing Yuan but slower than Ting Yun and Pella. Start the fight by activating all the techniques possible and end with Pella's technique. Ult with Bronya first and get those sweet buffs. Ult with Pella next to inflict the decreased defense. Ult with Ting Yun next on Jing Yuan and also use her skill on him. Do a basic attack with Pella, and since Bronya is faster than Jing Yuan but slower than the rest, she'll take the turn here and use her skill on Jing Yuan. Jing Yuan should now do his ult and skill. That means exactly 10 total hit count for the Lightning Lord. With tons of buffs still intact on Jing Yuan and a wave of weakened enemies, the damage will be pretty crazy. This will be pretty useful against 2 or 3 big elite mobs rather than one singular boss if you're looking to clean them up fast. But if you don't have good health and defense, it gets a little risky because you might need an extra cycle or 2 to clean things up. And that is all. Thank you for watching my in-depth Jing Yuan guide. I hope I was able to provide helpful insight. I tried my best to provide you guys with all the observation I've gathered, but of course, I'm still human though, so if I missed anything or misspoke, do feel free to correct me in the comments. Anyways, do let me know what other content you'd like from me. I'll probably be making more guides and fun and install videos maybe on the side. But yeah, if you did enjoy, do please drop me a sub and like, and that is all. Take care!